Welcome to the Grim Reaper channel, where we bring you bone-chilling true stories from around the world. From haunted houses to unexplained disappearances, we have it all. So turn off the lights, grab a blanket, and get ready for a scare.
That summer was like no other. It was the summer of adventure, of freedom, and of a boating trip that marked an end of an era. You see, we were just three college friends, Alex, Brian, and I, Charlie. Three musketeers, they'd call us back at college. We shared an apartment, laughs, late-night study sessions, and a love for thrill that often got us into trouble more than we'd like to admit. But it was the thrill that had brought us together, and it was the thrill we sought to cap off our unforgettable summer break. Alex, with his ever-smiling face, was the life of our small group. With sandy hair, twinkling eyes, and a joke always ready on his lips, he was the one who made our mundane college life bearable. Brian was the brain of our operation, always prepared, always one step ahead. His glasses always slid down his nose as he engrossed himself in books. But once you got him out of his academic shell, his sense of adventure was second to none. Then there was me, Charlie, the glue that held our trio together, the mediator, the peacekeeper, and the occasional daredevil. Planning for the trip was an adventure in itself. We spent days huddled around maps, spread across our living room floor, tracing our fingers along the coastline we planned to conquer. The smell of sea salt filled our nostrils as we pored over nautical charts, argued over supplies, and double-checked our safety gear. Our anticipation was electric, crackling in the air, raising the hair on our arms. We were boys on the brink of an adventure, feeding off the thrill of what lay ahead. Finally, the day of our journey came. The sun painted the morning sky in hues of gold and pink as we set off, our boat cutting through the placid waters with determination. The air tasted like freedom, and a hint of danger sending chills down our spines. Seabirds soared above, their cries echoing our own excitement. We could hardly contain our joy, our voices booming across the sea as we shared stories and jokes, the boat rocking with our laughter. The ride was tranquil, soothing even. The rhythm of the waves lulled our racing hearts while the sun warmed our skin, leaving us with a sense of serenity we hadn't known we craved. Our laughter quieted down, replaced by a comfortable silence as we soaked in the beauty of the endless sea, the rugged coastline, and the overwhelming sense of peace. Our boat cut through the water like a hot knife through butter when suddenly, like a ghost from the old seafarer's tale, a lighthouse appeared. Perched on an isolated strip of land, it was a weather-beaten monolith standing defiant against the endless expanse of sea. Time had carved lines into its whitewashed walls, and the sea breeze had rusted its metal bones. But still, it stood tall, a silent sentinel watching over the unending blue. A chill of intrigue trickled down my spine, and I could see from the spark in Alex and Brian's eyes that they felt it too. An unspoken agreement passed between us, and we steered the boat towards it. As we docked, the lighthouse loomed over us, its ominous shadow dwarfing our small boat. We stepped off, our feet crunching on the gravel path that led to its base. The air was thick with the smell of sea, and a faint muskiness that seemed to cling to the old structure. The door creaked open as we knocked, revealing a small, elderly man whose skin wore the same weather-beaten look as the lighthouse itself. His name was Harold, he told us, the lighthouse keeper. He squinted at us through cloudy eyes, but there was a warmth in his smile that eased the tension building within us. He ushered us inside, a surprising act of hospitality from such a solitary figure. Inside, the lighthouse was a time capsule. Antique maritime instruments were scattered across the room, and the air held a lingering scent of oil and old wood. Harold took us around, his frail hands delicately holding each object as he spun stories of his years at sea. Each tale was more captivating than the last, and we found ourselves drawn into his world, forgetting the unease that the lighthouse had initially sparked. Harold, despite his age, seemed full of life. He offered us a warm meal, an offering we gratefully accepted. The food was simple, but filled our stomachs and warmed our bodies. As we ate, Harold continued his stories, his voice weaving tales of heroic seafarers, epic storms, and many ships he had guided to safety with his lighthouse. His tales, the warmth of the lighthouse, and the rhythmic sound of the sea outside lulled us into a sense of security. We decided to spend some more time in the lighthouse, fascinated by the charm it held. The evening passed in a sort of daze. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, stretching shadows across the room, but we were caught in a time warp inside the lighthouse. Harold's stories flowed like the waves outside, one crashing into the other, pulling us deeper into the captivating world of the sea. The tales started to take a darker turn, with shipwrecks replacing heroic quests and lost sailors overshadowing triumphant returns. There was an eerie fascination to them, a grim reminder of the sea's merciless side, and we listened, our hearts pounding in our chests. Harold's voice held a strange quality, a hypnotic cadence that held us captive. His cloudy eyes sparkled with an intensity that felt unsettling. The way he spoke of the sea's cruelty, and his eyes seemed to glaze over when he talked about the lost sailors, felt wrong. A cold knot of uneasiness started to form in the pit of my stomach, a feeling mirrored on Alex and Brian's faces. Brian, ever the explorer, decided to snoop around. He returned, his face as white as the walls of the lighthouse. In his hands were a wallet and an identification card, both of which definitely didn't belong to Harold. He explained that he had found a room, its door barely ajar, filled with personal items. There were more wallets, pieces of jewelry, and several more identification cards, a graveyard of personal belongings. The room was chilling, like a cold gust of wind on a warm day. There was something inherently wrong about it, something that made my skin crawl. Looking at those items, the grim reality dawned upon us. We weren't Harold's first guests, and the others, they never left. A wave of fear crashed over us, the walls of the lighthouse closing in, and Harold's stories took on a terrifying new context. His tales were not just stories, they were confessions. We were trapped in a lighthouse with a man who was not just a keeper of the light, but a keeper of dark secrets. Secrets that were as deep and as terrifying as the sea outside. The laughter and camaraderie of earlier had vanished, replaced with a suffocating dread. We knew we had to get out, to escape this lighthouse and the keeper who had ensnared us in his chilling web. Our eyes darted around, the room suddenly seeming too small. Harold's presence too menacing. His smile was now gone, replaced with a stone-cold stare, his eyes holding a spark of insanity. We whispered plans, desperate and hushed, as Harold's gaze seemed to intensify. I could hear the blood pounding in my ears and felt the cold beads of sweat forming on my forehead. This was no longer an adventure. It was a fight for survival. Our plan was risky, but so was staying. The atmosphere was electrifying, each moment dragging on like an eternity. And then came the confrontation. Harold, his gnarled hands gripping a large, rusty knife, blocked our way, his eyes wild and unhinged. His voice echoed through the lighthouse, a bone-chilling promise of a fate worse than death if we dared to defy him. But we were desperate, and desperation can make you do crazy things. That's when I saw an old maritime flare gun on the shelf. I had to divert Harold's attention. I began to ask him about the various maritime artifacts in the room, playing into his fascination for the sea. My voice sounded strange, strained even to my ears, but it worked. Harold's eyes flickered towards the objects I pointed at, his grip on the knife faltering slightly. With my heart pounding in my chest, I gave a subtle nod to Brian and Alex, who were watching me with wide, fear-filled eyes. In a swift move that surprised even me, I lunged for the flare gun. The bright red flare burst out, illuminating the room and casting monstrous shadows on the walls. Harold reeled back, startled, the knife slipping from his hand. Seizing the moment, Alex and Brian rushed him, their adrenaline-fueled strength managing to overpower the old sailor. Harold's surprised shout echoed through the lighthouse, but we didn't wait to see what he would do next. We ran, our footsteps thudding on the wooden stairs, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. The air outside felt like a sweet relief, but we didn't waste time savoring it. We sprinted towards our boat, our bodies moving on pure instinct. The boat roared to life as we pulled away from the cursed lighthouse. The chilling image of Harold standing at the entrance, a demented smile on his face, was etched into our minds. Fear and relief swirled within us as we sped away. The Coast Guard was contacted, their stern voices promising swift action. The investigation that followed revealed Harold's dark secret. He was not just a lighthouse keeper. He was a predator who had been luring unsuspecting boaters to his den for years. The news sent a chill down our spines, the reality of our narrow escape sinking in. Our journey back home was silent. The familiar coastline sights, which had looked so appealing at the start of our trip, now seemed to carry an eerie quietude. We didn't say much, the chilling echoes of our terrifying encounter drowning the need for conversation. The only sound was the monotonous hum of the boat engine and the rhythmic splash of the waves against the hull. It was as if we were moving through a dream, or more accurately, a nightmare, unable to shake off the horror that had unfolded. The horrifying reality of our ordeal had replaced the thrill of adventure that had bound us together. We were the same three friends, but everything had changed. The relief at having survived was almost tangible, heavy in the air around us. There were no triumphant high fives or exhilarating retelling of our daring escape. Just three friends, silent in their relief. Our bond deepened by an experience we'd never forget. The realization of who Harold truly was and how narrowly we had escaped a terrible fate was sobering. We had walked into his trap, unsuspecting and innocent, enticed by the charm of the unknown. We had been at the mercy of a man who had lured countless others before us, their fates sealed within the confines of that weather-beaten lighthouse.
We hope you enjoyed our spine-tingling stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on our latest uploads. Until next time, sweet dreams, if you can sleep at all.